Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are tuning in from. We appreciate that you are here with us. We are all in the evening time. So thank you for spending your time with us. We are bringing you another Backyard Buckets podcast presented by Backyard Sports. Our penultimate off-season episode. We have one more off-season episode, boys. That'll be next Thursday, same time. But as you can clearly see in the top left of your corner, there are 12 days left until regular season tip-off. We have been seeing some preseason games, a little Vic versus Chet. Everybody was excited for that one. I'm here once again, obviously, with Gary and Ryan, your NBA experts, and I just like to talk a lot. But boys, how are we feeling this evening? Ryan, how are you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. Happy to not be working, as I established in the pre-call here. And the Rockets play in an hour, so we need to hurry up because the preseason champions will be on soon.
Nice, yeah. The whole crew. Look at us back again. What's up, man?
Hey, Dad.
Gary, how you doing, buddy? Talk to me.
I'm doing good, man. I don't think I'll be tuning into that preseason game. Although the Rockets are the preseason champions typically, I'll be watching football, but I am excited about tip-off next week, so it'll be great.
Yeah. It is exciting. I will technology has blessed me with the ability to watch multiple sporting events at once, so I will have an eye on football, and I will have an eye on the Phillies and Braves game as well, because that's been an electric series. All right. So, like I said, the penultimate off-season episode, which means the time has come for ESPN to release their top 100 players list, as they do every year. This is a list pulled from NBA experts, GMs, kind of taken from all entities surrounding NBA. And ESPN formulates it all, and then they run it through their analysts. And this is a list of players going into next year who we assume are going to be the best 100 players, right? So it's not based off of previous, we're not ranking the top 100 players last year. We're predicting the top 100 players going into next year, right? Who's going to be the best? That being said, I'm not going to read all 100 players. I promise you I will not do that. That is terrible content, and I feel bad for you if you're listening to that. However, I will read you. I'll go through like the first 15, so we can kind of get a feel for who is in our top. It's all of your expected parties, right? We started number 15, Donovan Mitchell. 14, Damian Lillard. 13, Anthony Edwards. 12, Jimmy Butler. 11 is Devin Booker. 10 is Anthony Davis. 9 is LeBron James. 8 is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. 7 is Kevin Durant. 6 is Jason Tatum. 5 is Steph Curry. 4 is Luka. 3 is your reigning MVP, Joel Embiid. 2 is the two-time back-to-back, not Dr. Disrespect, Nikola Jokic. Should have been 3-time, I agree. And then number 1 is the 3 seasons ago MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. So, boys, I will ask you this. We've all read through the list. I hope that we've all read the list. It's a lot of names. It's at least 200 words.
It is, at least.
Just give me initial thoughts. Gary, I'll go to you first. Did anyone stick out? Do we agree, disagree? What do we think, just right off the bat?
Yeah, I think for me, there are some names that stuck out, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of them. But what does stick out to me about this NBA list, as opposed to, we do these lists for all sports. They put out these lists, and the NFL Top 100 is the one that kind of gets the most hubbub and fanfare. There's like a whole reveal. They do like TV episodes, 10 of them, in fact, or 7 of them. I'm sorry. They do them like 2020 and then like 10 down the stretch. But the big thing that sticks out to me is this NBA list, these NBA experts, they go a lot harder in terms of projecting rookie success early. We don't see in other sports where like rookies, they get hyped and, whatnot, but we don't see where they get ranked really high against veterans. So I respect that, right, from these NBA experts in terms of, how they rank these players. But there were some rookies in there that I looked at and I was like, wow, that's aggressive, right, for some of these rookies that were ranked. Not to say like they're not going to be great players, because we talked a lot about, Vic and Scoot and whatnot, especially from the top two, and Bobby Miller, Jesus Christ, I'm fucking losing his name right. Brandon Miller.
Brandon Miller.
I was just listening about the Dodgers earlier, and I got Bobby Miller on my mind. But Brandon Miller and, Ryan's Alman Thompson, et cetera, from, the lottery. It was surprising to see how high some of these rookies were on this top 100 list. I hope they're right, because that means we're going to have a really, really exciting rookie class this year. But yeah, I respect it. Go out on that limb and talk about how much you like these rookies, and we'll see how it plays out. But that's what stuck out to me. That's what always sticks out to me every year with the NBA list, is they're much more aggressive with projecting rookies than some of the other sports writers are for the other sports.
Yeah, I agree. It is always interesting to see how these guys think the rookies are going to play out before we've even seen them play a regular season game, right?
Yep.
Ryan, same question to you, man. Just initial thoughts based off this list.
Yeah, I agree with Gary about some of the hype machines that come out of these things, but that's the point of why they exist. There's a lot of clicks to be had. I think Bleacher Report's entire model, this is not a Bleacher Report list, but I think Bleacher Report's entire model is a list model. It's like, we don't actually make articles, there's just lists. And those are super valuable because people love to argue about lists. My real only comment, and I think y'all kind of know how I feel about it, is that the big markets get a lot of extra play in these, and that is likely because of what I just said. Is the big markets have a lot of clicks available and a lot of people to comment on it. And I think there's one guy specifically that I was really surprised at where he was at. But yeah, I think from an economic standpoint, I get why they exist, but they can be a little silly sometimes.
Yeah, it is. We understand the content machine. It is about getting those clicks and the interactions, which we do all appreciate here as well. Thank you for everyone that tunes in and does that for us. We're coming for you, ESPN. Woj, watch out, buddy. I'm right on your tracks. Ryan, that's actually a perfect segue. You mentioned one guy specifically, not by name, but you did mention there was one specifically that stood out to you that you were surprised by his ranking. Why don't you go ahead and fill us in here, and just to kind of set the stage, we're going to go through this list. Again, not name by name, not all 100, but we've all kind of pinpointed some guys that we feel are maybe out of place where we would rank them, how we project them going forward into next season. So Ryan, we'll start with you since you brought it up first. Who's the name, where are they at, and what's your thought on
it? I don't like where Austin Reeves is. I know Bentley knows this because that was, I think, my first comment about this list. Was I don't like where Austin Reeves is. And I like Austin Reeves. I thought I was higher on Austin Reeves for a while. I actually liked him coming out of Oklahoma. I thought he could have been like a late first round pick. And I think he went to the second round and said, don't draft me because I want to pick where I want to go. Because he would have been drafted. He was a known quantity. But I like the guy a lot. But 66 in the NBA, you're saying he's a fringe second option? Like on 30, like out of 30 teams, right? Like obviously that's not exactly how it works, but like you're saying he's a third option on a team, like in a very good third option. I don't see that. I think that's Lakers hype. He can't stop a nosebleed defensively. And I like the guy, and he could prove me wrong, but like he's above Anunoby, one spot above, so it's kind of like we're nitpicking a little bit, but like I would take Anunoby 100 times out of 100 offered between the two. Guys like Michael Porter Jr. right behind him, Brook Lopez. I don't see him in that same tier. I think he's one tier probably below that. I think he should be like in the 80s probably. Like he's in the Cam Johnson. Like he's better than Tobias Harris. Like that's crazy to me. Tobias Harris getting no love as always.
Bag of chips.
Yeah. Anthony Simons, like he's worse than Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons is really good. Like,
yeah.
Anthony Simons could be the third best option on championship team. I don't know if Austin Reeves is. I just there's like 6, 7, 8 guys I'm like I would obviously put above it, and I feel like it's Lakers love and a little bit of US Love, right? He played for the U.S. He looked pretty good.
I think the FIBA performance by him
Yep.
is maybe clouding some of the judgments, because I think if you just base it on his NBA performance, you're absolutely right, Ryan. Like I'd venture to say from like 85 to 65. I'm looking from that point. There's a lot of guys on that list that I think I would take over Austin Reeves. I don't think he's a top 75 player. So I'm looking at probably 10 names at least after him that I would take over him. I agree with you completely. He is way, 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 way too overrated in my opinion, for sure. I agree 100%.
I agree with the both of y'all that he is overrated on this list. Had he not played very well for Team USA, I don't imagine he's in the 60s.
Yep.
That being said, I think he is an underpaid NBA player. And I said this during our free agency pod, and I will continue to say this. I do not understand why he's not a San Antonio Spur making, $20 million a year. But he's not. So, sucks to be him, unless you really, really wanted to be on the Lakers. Like Ryan said, he kind of dropped down and said, don't draft me. Please let me choose where I want to play, which is weird. It's very smart. I'm kind of shocked that more guys don't do that, really. If you have that first round grade and then you slip, why not be like, hey, I'm just going to choose where I want to go. Please don't draft me. But, not everyone can do that. He obviously is a very talented NBA player. He's just not the 66th best player in the NBA.
No.
He's also old. It's like he's way older than people think he is. They're like, oh, he's only been in the league for 2 years. Like, think how good he'll be at 25. It's like, he's already 25.
Yeah. It's true. The good news for him, though, is that 2 of his teammates on this list are in the top 10, so he doesn't have a huge amount of responsibility. I do think he'll be much better this year than he was last year, just based off of sheer opportunity alone. He's going to get a lot more minutes than he did last year, I think. But yeah, 66 feels like a stretch for him. I agree. All right, Gabe, do you have a name for me?
Yeah, I actually have 2 because they're on the same team, so I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. One I think is a little overrated, and one I think is a bit underrated. In fact, it's probably one of the guys I mentioned a moment ago that I would take over Austin Reeves. Underrated, in my opinion, is Jalen Williams. Sitting at, 85, I believe, or 86?
95.
Or 95, that's right. 95, but I'd probably put him up. I thought he was going to be closer to like 80 or so. He's just underrated. I like what he brings to the table. He's a very efficient player, shoots a high percentage, long, athletic. I was really surprised how low he was. I don't. And the fact that he's got a teammate that's higher than him that didn't play last year at all. Like, we don't know what we're going to get from Chet Holmgren. But on the flip side, I thought that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was a little overrated being in the top 10. And he moved 40 spots, which shows the career year that he had last year, right? But prior to last year, would anybody have thought Shai Gilgeous was a top 25 player? No. He had a great season, changed his style of play. I think the addition of Chet Holmgren is going to hurt him in terms of that mid-range, clogging up the lane a bit. So I don't know that I buy it with Shai that he's going to repeat that this year. So if we are truly projecting for this year, I probably would have had him closer to 12 to 15. Great season last year. I think he's an uber talented player. Had a great FIBA run as well. I think maybe some of that also helped with him getting into the top 10, but I don't know that I'm taking him over AD, right? I still don't think I'm going to take him over LeBron. So I'm probably moving him 10 at the highest, but I thought he'd be more like 12 to 15. If he replicates it, I think he's a guy that could kind of creep closer into the top 6 or 7, but it's one season, it's an outlier, and he's getting more talent on that squad as they continue to just have high draft picks that they keep adding to that roster as well. But he's clearly the leader on that team. Eight's aggressive. Eight's aggressive for me. So I probably would shift both of those players a little ways in both directions, and you may end up with, on my list, you probably end up with 3 Thunder players between 12 and 70, 74, 75, something like that.
you didn't even mention what I think is the most egregious Thunder location, and that's Josh Giddey at 53.
Yeah.
I think that's way too high.
Yeah.
Way
Too
too
high.
high.
Wait, too high.
Yep. I would have Williams over him. I would put Giddey about 20 spots back, probably. I like Giddey a lot, and this is a projection of this coming year. If he shoots, then yeah, that he's a top 50 guy. I don't know if he can shoot though. That he has an elite skill. He's got elite size. I completely agree with that, and I like the guy. But man, there's some guys like a lot of guys like Desmond Bain is, I think, really underrated. I know we haven't got to overrated, so I apologize for skipping, but I just think you mentioned all these Thunder guys, and I think Williams, who is older, not getting the love that Giddey is getting, who is younger, so I'll give him some credit there. But I expect Williams to be a better player than Giddey this year. And they're like 30 spots away from each other.
Yeah. It would be 4, actually. I did misspeak. I'm not moving Holmgren down from where he's at because I think he's okay right there. But I probably moved Jalen Williams into like the top 75 to maybe 80 at the highest. 95 I thought was really fucking insulting for Jalen.
Yeah, that's bad. He's already a top 75 player, and you expect him to probably be better.
Right. Yeah, I don't hate your take on Giddey. I think the way he took the league by surprise last year, people are expecting that to continue. And I would caution that, right? If I'm somebody who's going to try to project Giddey, I like him. I like his style of play. Doesn't shoot very well, but you look at a guy like a Kyle Kuzma, right? Or Jeremy Lin is probably the most extreme example of somebody who really kind of caught the league off guard, took him by surprise, and then just kind of faded into Bolivia, as Mike Tyson would say. But yeah, I don't hate where they got him ranked because I feel like the hype machine was always going to kind of have him higher than Jalen Williams because he's kind of the focal point of the quarterback of that offense. But yeah, I don't disagree with you, Ryan. I don't.
Bentley does because I saw his face when I said
he likes Giddey, though. We know he likes
Giddey. I'm a Giddey guy. I love those types of players that are not necessarily score first dominant guys that are able to create opportunities for his teammates, right? So it plays to the point that Gary laid out where he thinks SGA is overrated for next year because there is more talent coming into the fold in Oklahoma City, right? That allows for Giddey to exemplify his skill set of playmaking for the guys around him without being a score dominant player, right? It allows him to be that connective tissue between, to borrow a term from Bill Simmons, fucking awesome Jalen Williams, to SGA, to Chet Holmgren, to Lou Dort, to whoever they're going to run out there on the court at the time. And we've seen that Josh Giddey can score the ball. He obviously he's not a great shooter, like Ryan said, and I'm not here to dispute that. I mean, he's an efficient scorer when he makes up his mind that he's going to score the ball. He has an excellent floater game. He's great around the rim, and with his size, that affords him the ability and the opportunity to just really focus on scoring in the paint. Where we've seen even in the preseason game between the Spurs and the Rockets, or the Spurs and the Thunder. Chet can spread the floor, right? So if they're playing Chet at the 5, which I assume they're going to do quite a bit, that allows Giddey to get into the paint and spray the ball out to Jalen Williams, who is an extremely efficient three-point shooter. Chet, who probably will be a decent, three-point shooter. And then SGA, if he can be engaged to play off the ball, he can cut, he can get backdoor cuts. Like, it allows Giddey to facilitate the ball to all those other different players. I'm not saying that. I do have Giddey written down as underrated on my other screen here, and I kind of don't feel that way anymore. The more that I think about it, he's in the 50 to 60 range for me, right? I feel like he's probably pretty good where he is currently at 53. But I really value a skill set like that in a player. That's just me. I think he's pretty properly rated. I do have a sort of a 3-man swap that I could include Jalen Williams in, right? So Jeremy Grant is number 58 on this list. Kristaps Porzingis is number 62. And Jalen Williams is number 95. So what if we swap Jalen Williams down to 62, Porzingis up to 58, and then bring Jeremy Grant all the way back down to 95. Because I'm not a big Jeremy Grant guy. I think he's inefficient. We saw him in Detroit try to run his own squad. It did not work out for him there. And then he signed this massive extension in Portland. And granted, they have a ton of cap room because they got off the Lillard contract, right? They got off Drew Holiday. But I'm just not a Jeremy Grant fan. I don't think he's bad, but if you're telling me that he's better than Kristaps Porzingis, he's better than Michael Porter Jr., right? Like he's better than Kate Cunningham, he's better than Jordan Poole, like he's better than all these guys that are listed behind him. I just disagree with that. I think 58 is way too high for him, or too low, whichever. He's rated too highly. I think he's overrated.
How much do you think that is the writers expecting Portland's offense to struggle and Jeremy Grant to just be a volume guy again? That's what I chalk it up to.
Probably yes, but I don't. My biggest hope is that that's not the case of what happens in Portland.
Oh, I agree. If they're successful this year, that doesn't happen, right? I agree.
Right.
The growth of Scoot, the integration of Ayton, and how that roster comes together, that doesn't happen. But I wonder if the writers are kind of looking at it and saying, Scoot's a rookie. Are they really going to give him the reins of the offense, or is it going to be the Jeremy Grant show again? And I agree with you 100% about Jeremy Grant. He's not a top 75 player in my book.
Right.
I didn't necessarily single him out because, he was a big time volume guy last year, put up career numbers. But you're absolutely right. He's super inefficient. I don't hate your three player swap there. I say all that to say that.
Yeah. I have him written down as overrated, and I have Porzingis written down as underrated. Like, even if you were to just swap 62 and 58, I'd be okay with that. But I think it's criminal that Kristaps Porzingis, who had the best year of his career, kind of post injury, right? But everything prior was development. So post ACL, Porzingis had the best year of his career in Washington. Why is he below Jeremy Grant, who is not a proven efficient player? To me, I didn't understand that, but kind of all that to say, I think Jeremy Grant 58 doesn't make sense to me. Ryan, do you agree, or do you have thoughts on that one?
I think I like Jeremy Grant a little bit more than you, but I do think it's high. Yeah, I'd probably move him down like 20 spots. I think he's probably, and he's even lower, but I think he's in like the John Collins range for me as a player. And John Collins is in at like 90 something, 96 or something like that. 90, just 90. Yeah. I would have him like in that, and they're similar players. What I will say is Jeremy Grant is no longer the defender that he used to be, and I think he's probably getting some reputation love for his previous defensive acumen, which is fine. Like you're supposed to when you're an older player, right? It's like, hey, I remember when he was good. Like Kobe was a All-NBA defensive player for about 7 years after he was a good defensive player. So, I think he's getting some credit for that. But yeah, I mean, I like him. I don't like his contract, like we stated when he was signed. But that's not what this is about. This is just them as a player. So I'd have him like in the 80s probably. So, like I said, around John Collins, who's at 90. So who I think is maybe a little low as well.
So as I'm looking at this list, and we can get back to y'all's individual lists of over and under, right? It's not necessarily unders now and overs later. If you have one or the other, we can do those. But I'm looking at this right now, and I'm a little perplexed, right? So last year, the player who led the NBA in assists was named James Harden. He's currently he's currently number 43 on this list. Klay Thompson is currently number 41 on this list, and sandwiched in between them is current James Harden teammate Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with Maxey. I like Maxey being there. Do you guys think that Klay Thompson is currently a better basketball player or will be next year than James Harden?
It's a reputation pick. I think people are still envisioning Klay Thompson as the best two-way guard that there was in the league for 5 years, probably a 5-year stretch where he was the best two-way guard. He ain't that guy anymore. He's not even that shooter anymore, and I think it's probably still tentativeness from the injury. I mean, he had devastating, right? You blow out your knee, then you're rehabbing and you blow out your Achilles. Like he had it was 700 and some days between basketball games at, competitive basketball games at the professional level. So it's to be expected, right? But like Are you projecting that he's going to get over that and become that guy? What's he, 36 now, 37? I don't think he's going to be that guy anymore, right? So I agree with you. I think a little high for Thompson. I probably don't have him top 60. I'd have to really kind of grind at it. I didn't really single him out either in terms of on my list, but I agree with you that he's not better than Harden. I did notice where Harden is and kind of where he slots in. There's probably 5 guys in front of him between where he's at 43 up to 30. There's probably 5 guys I shuffle behind him, so he's probably top 35 to 38. But yeah, Klay Thompson, I don't have him over Harden right now.
Ryan, do you agree?
It's so hard for me to be honest about James Harden.
I know, that's why I asked you.
You know, Amen Thompson's winning Rookie of the Year.
Jabari Smith, most improved player.
Alperen is the next Nikola Jokic. You know, I have trouble with my home team making. James Harden's probably the second greatest Rocket of all time. It's tough for me to be honest about it. He's better than Klay Thompson right now.
Mm-hmm.
Klay Thompson is only 33, I will say.
Yeah.
I put him in the nursing home sooner than I should have.
His knees are older than 37, so if you average that out, you might be right. Yeah, I mean, I think he's a better player than Klay Thompson. He's getting a lot of hate probably for how he's acting right now. That probably doesn't help his reputation. I think he's still a guy that can give you 20 and 10 like consistently every single night. He can't go to the hole as easily as he used to, but like, you know, he's still an elite passer, still a great volume shooter. I think he's a little low. I think that's mostly his attitude recently. And also there's just so much expectation that Maxey is going to like accelerate that I think they're like counterbalancing each other, right? Where it's like, oh, we're hyping Maxey, so we have to like call down Harden because if Maxey is that good, then Harden's numbers will be not as good, right? So I think it makes sense logically them doing that, but I actually don't agree. I like Maxey, but I don't see Maxey being the better player this year. Or even comparable. I still think Harden will be a noticeably better player if they play together. Which you know who knows what that happened with that.
No idea.
I flip flop Klay and Steph. I thought Klay was older than Steph. I don't know why, but Steph's going into his age 30.
I mean, he's not young. You're right. Like a knee injury in that age.
Steph. I don't know why.
I mean, he's played like one season in his 30s.
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
Like
he was on that Derrick Rose recovery timetable where it was just forever.
I mean, my foot hurts and I'm out for like weeks out of work, so you know, I give him some credit.
Yeah.
All right, let's get
ligament and then a major tendon.
Yeah. Let's Ryan just eats red meat and he's like, oh god.
Damn you.
All right, let's get back to y'all's list. Gary, give me another one if you got one that you kind of stuck out to you that you went over or under with.
Yeah, looking at Bradley Beal, kind of slotting him where Ja Morant fell. I thought he was going to be closer to like 30, maybe top 28 or so. He's still one of the most effective scorers in the league, and he's going to be on a team that's all they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's getting enough credit for the offense he's going to be in and the focus that's going to be on Durant and how much he's going to have a lot of freedom to just be Bradley Beal. When he was at his best in Washington, when they sucked and it was just Bradley Beal doing Bradley Beal things, he was fucking scorching all the time. I think he's going to have a huge season in terms of scoring. The Suns are going to score, 135, 140 points a game probably. Yeah. We're going to look at like the old Oscar Robertson fucking days of just really high-paced scoring. So
my God.
I know. I had to get that out there for you, bud.
Where's he on this list?
It'd still give you 10 and 5.
Yeah, probably. But that's what I see for this team, and I think Beal is going to be one of the most effective scorers in the league because he's going to have a lot of those opportunities to play iso ball, and that's what he's so good at. He's 38, I think, is what he's ranked. I look at Morant, who's going to miss 25 games already this season. I think he's better than Garland. Kyrie, I think, is a little underrated, but he's probably right in that area. Bridges over Bradley Beal, I don't see that. Jalen Brunson, there's a handful of guys ahead of Bradley Beal that I would move him beyond without question. Being him being at 38 was a big one for me. That Phoenix Suns offense. Durant and Beal might both score 32 points this year, honestly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be nuts to watch that. And if we're projecting for the season, I just didn't get it with Beal.
That's fair. Ryan, thoughts?
I think Beal's about right, personally. I see what Gary is saying, though. Like, the spot's pretty good for him to, like, have a bounce back year. It doesn't get a lot better, probably, as like the third option to Durant and Booker being the facilitator. So like Beal should get a lot of open looks. I still think there's some limitations with Beal that are going to be exposed on the Phoenix team defensively. That I think kind of keeps him in that range. But yeah, that team's really good, and it would not shock me if Bradley Beal is a 26, 27 point per game with like pretty good efficiency for a guy who maybe not the most efficient historically, but solid. So yeah, I think he's about right. I can see him moving up a little bit.
On that one-off question here, Ryan, for you mentioned Booker. I didn't mention Booker because we all know Kevin Durant's like the best pure scorer in the world, right? But do you think Booker's scoring is going to take a step back, being the facilitator on that offense, or are we going to see three guys around 30 points a game?
Well, he's got a lot of studs to facilitate to include Keita Bates Diop,
Yuta Watanabe.
Yeah. Some of my personal goats.
He doesn't have
also Kai Jones, maybe.
He has infinity money, dude. He doesn't need to play in the NBA. He told everyone on Twitter last night.
I saw that. That was great. Yeah, I think actually all three of their points dip like 2 or 3 points. Maybe not Beal's because he had a down year. His might like go up, but I think Booker and Durant probably dip a little bit. I think Booker is the most likely to dip because he's expected to be the playmaker, and he's pretty good. Like he's not like an amazing playmaker. He's kind of in like the Drew Holiday range of playmakers, like good, not great.
Yeah.
But with that team, you can become a great playmaker very easily. So I would get a lot of assists if I could pass to Kevin Durant,
Right.
and if he shot it every time I passed it to him.
I see Booker close to 10 assists a game, which is almost double his career high. So
yeah, I could see him in like the 8 range. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, I mean, like if it's like legitimately he has the ball a lot and he's breaking down defenses, I don't think he gets enough rim pressure to get to 10 assists because I think that's like a big part of. That's why James Harden was always such a great passer, right? Is like it gets to the hole and the whole defense is in the paint and he just kicks it out, right? Like I don't see that for Booker doing that. But yeah, I could see like 8. And if he gets 10, not the most shocking thing. I don't think that's like a crazy outlier for him to be that. I just don't think he's that level of playmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen him in the past prior to Chris Paul coming to Phoenix have to play that facilitator role. And it almost, I don't want to say it stunted his progression as a player in the NBA because he developed new skills that he didn't have when he came out of Kentucky, right? So I am excited to watch him play that facilitator role once again. And Beal almost was asked to play a very similar role in Washington whenever John Wall went down. They were like, hey, you're our best guard. You're going to have the ball the most. Let's run this offense through you. So to me, they almost have like a dual facilitator role going on in Phoenix because there are going to be nights when Devin Booker gets his points and he's hot and he's hitting everything, right? We've seen it multiple times from him where he drops 36.5 or something like that, right?
One of the best off the dribble.
Yeah. And Kevin Durant's one of the most underrated facilitators ever, in my opinion. The guy, he does everything on a basketball court at such a high level that people really just focus in on the scoring because, like Gary said, he's the best pure scorer maybe the game has ever seen, right? Yeah, so like it takes away the shine from his facilitation, and being 7'1" or whatever he doesn't claim to be, right? It allows him passing lanes that these other guys just don't have. So I don't expect Booker to get 10. 7, 8 probably is like what I would expect to see him put up this year.
If
But I think it's going to be fun.
If Beal and if it's a combo of those two, then yeah, I would agree. 8's probably the target number. I guess I just in my head, Booker was just going to be the focal point of facilitating that offense.
Sure.
I think he's the guy that's most equipped to do it. But you're right, Bentley. Beal did that for a little bit in Washington, and that was when we saw him, be that high volume guy because he had to be, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a very talented roster either. On top of losing John Wall, you didn't have a lot of talent behind him.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. You guys convinced me. They're not going to score 30 points again. They'll probably.
They might. Who knows?
No, they legitimately could.
Yeah.
That would not shock me. I think it's like we've seen it with a lot of big threes where they all kind of like merge like towards each other, right? Towards a mean. Like Chris Bosh was like, I'm the third best guy on this team, so I'm going to lower my points.
Yeah.
LeBron is like, there's always one guy who kind of accelerates a little bit because of the way they play, and then two who usually drop off a little bit from their career averages. But other things do balance out. So it's possible that Booker loses points but gains assists, which I think is like the most likely scenario based off the 5 minutes I've watched them in preseason, because that's about how much they've played. That's what it looks like. And he could, and it would not shock me if he had 10 assists. Like if they really are a free flowing offense, like, and not just an ISO offense, he could. I don't think that's crazy for him to have like 9.5 or something like that. Like I don't think that's an insane thing to do.
Carlos Boozer made $200 million and now works.
He
for
made 2 future
ESPN
basketball stars.
Yeah,
his son is a stud. Cam is a stud.
He's now training his son.
His son is the best junior in the country.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Gary, to your point of him being 38 and being underrated, I think he kind of. So I have some guys in front of him that I think are overrated. So just by natural attrition, I would move him down. Right. I think 35 is probably the right range for him. I don't think he's underrated. He averages for his career 4.5 free throw attempts a game. I think it's a very large shortcoming of his to be an elite scorer in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like to the level that we speak about him to, you have to get free throw attempts because those are gimme points. To
Hardly
be that
scoring titles at the charity stripe.
Right. Like we talk about Kevin Durant, who averages almost 8 free throw attempts a game for his career. Like in 2009, he averaged 10 free throw attempts for the season per game, and he's the best scorer ever, right? So if you want to be mentioned in that upper echelon of scoring guard in the NBA, you have to get to the paint and you have to force fouls and get free throw attempts. So, but that's not a knock on him, right? I'm just saying like that kind of hinders him from jumping into that 25-ish rank for me personally. All right, Ryan, give me another one, dude, if you got one. Over or underrated?
Well, I mentioned one. I didn't love the Tobias Harris disrespect.
Right.
I find him to be criminally underrated as a player. I think it's like, oh, he's the third or fourth option there, so he's not good. It's like they have like the best 4 option in the entire league. He's like a second option on a bad team and a third option on a good team. If they win a championship, he's like a top 60 guy probably. I think that's what has hurt him because he's been there a while. The guy that I highlighted, y'all will like this. I know you were talking about Bradley Beal, a former Wizard. I'm going to talk about a current Wizard that's on this list. I think Jordan Poole is underrated on this list. I think he should be around where he was last year at like the 55 range to 50 probably, which he's at 72 on this list. I think that he is going to score a lot of points on this team. And hear me out, okay? I know you are shaking your head because, like, yes, he's going to chuck the ball a lot. Everyone kind of understands that. But I want to talk about the roster construction and why he's going to do that. Okay. You talked about Josh Giddey and how that team is structured well for his style of play, right? He has a lot of people to get the ball to who are all scoring threats. Even their center is a scoring threat. I completely agree. Jordan Poole has the exact opposite. He has a bunch of guys who like to defer, and he does not. Jones likes to defer. Avdia likes to defer. Bilal Koulibaly, not a number one guy right now. He's probably going to defer a lot. He's a defensive guy who has some ball skills, but is not there yet, right? Like, someone's got to take the shots on that team. And
I don't think a bunch of shot clock.
Yeah, I mean, they're just going to keep passing to each other. Yeah. I mean, and Jordan Poole's going to take them.
Yes.
Jordan Poole could be a top 5 scorer in the NBA this year. Like that would not shock me if he's like 28.5 points or so. So I'm not saying it's going to be crazily efficient, like, but he could very easily do that. It's kind of like a Monte Ellis kind of situation. Yeah. That's who it makes me think of a little bit. Obviously, he's more of a shooter.
3 years on that shit team.
Yeah, I could see Jordan Poole easily going past 50 and people being like, oh wow, he's legit. He's gonna have all the team passing him the ball, and someone, like I said, has got to take the shots. So.
Gary, over under? What do you think?
I think it's a good point. I didn't really think of it that way. When I saw the number, my interpretation was what I think of Jordan Poole as a basketball player, right? Really terrible defensive player, really inefficient offensive player, high volume guy. Isn't afraid. Ryan, you mentioned someone's gonna have to take the shots. He's not afraid to like hog shots when Steph Curry's on the floor. So you ain't gonna convince me that he's not gonna hog shots with fucking Denny Avdia on the floor. So he's gonna shoot a ton. And I didn't really think about it that way, but Ryan, you make a good argument that just from like a de facto standpoint, he's probably gonna score upper 20s and he's probably gonna get fucking 35 shots a game. And if he converts any of that into any sort of efficiency, we're probably going to see him be, you mentioned maybe a top 5 scorer. It could be, and maybe that works. And maybe we can trade him at the deadline and get a bunch of pieces. I don't know.
Or Corey Kispert just takes all the shots. That's the other option. Another guy who defers, right? Like it's like that 7-man rotation, just people who defer, except for Johnny Davis. Yeah. Who might take the second most shots on that team.
Hold that thought there, my friend. Uh-oh. I have a guy on my list who I think is underrated, who plays for the Wizards, and his name is Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, Kuzma will take this. He'll take a lot of shots.
He will be this. He will have the second most FGAs on that team.
Probably.
Yeah, that's 100%. My prediction. He is currently at 86. I think that's too low. I think he should be in like the 75 range, right? He should be somewhere near Jordan Poole on this list, honestly, in my opinion.
They're comparable for sure. Like similar type of player. Just
based off of opportunity alone, Kuzma has never played with like a real good point guard, right? He played with D'Angelo Russell, but like, come on, D'Lo, not that great, right? And that was D'Lo's first go around in LA. He's playing now with Jones, who we all know from this pod that I love. I'm a big fan. Duke point guards, just everybody give a round of applause for them. But he's going to have more opportunity to score in this offense and showcase his offensive skill set, which I think is pretty underrated in the league, right? He's a very, very skilled traditional power forward who is able to stretch the floor more so than other guys that play that position. He's not going to bang your body down low in the paint and score. He's not going to go off rim or like off backboard, right? But he's a guy that is able to get his shot whenever he has the ball. And now he's going to be able to have the ball fed to him in more optimal scoring positions than he has really in the past. And if Jordan Poole is taking and making as many jumpers as Ryan thinks he's going to, then that'll free up a lot of room, especially if Corey Kispert is out there. Tyus Jones can shoot the three. It just allows for more spacing and a more fluid offense for Kyle Kuzma to be able to put up numbers, in my opinion. So I think he's too low. Do y'all agree or disagree? What do you think, Gary?
I agree. He's going to be the second option on that Wizards team. For a lot of last season with Beal injured, he was the number one option on that Wizards team, even with Kristaps playing. Kuzma was a guy that wasn't afraid to put up shots. He's never going to be a guy who's afraid to put up shots. It will be interesting to see how those two work together because during the summer we've kind of seen them buddy trying to be, good teammates or whatever you want to call it. I'll be interested to see how that works on the floor. for how it's going to work in terms of who's going to get the volume and when that's going to take place. If it's just a fast-paced offense, then everybody's got enough shots. But we know Jordan Poole is not the easiest person to get along with. We found that out in Golden State. The fact that one of his teammates fucking punched him is a big sign of how difficult he might be as a teammate. But if it's one of those things where it's just, hey, we're going to get up and down the floor and we're going to get a lot of shots up, then I think they're both going to be really happy. And if that's the case, I think Kuzma has a really good opportunity to replicate what he had last year. What he finished with 21-7, I believe, were his final numbers last year. I think he's got an opportunity to replicate that, maybe even improve upon that a little bit in the scoring department. Maybe he elevates that to 22, 23 points a game. Going to have a lot of opportunity to play because that roster is pretty, as Ryan said, it's pretty passive. It's pretty barren in terms of established stars. And other than Jordan Poole, there's nobody demanding time.
Yep. Brian, what do you think? Overrated, underrated, properly rated for Kuzma? They're at 86.
I think that's correct for his skill. It's probably too low for his opportunity, which is kind of my same argument for Poole. I won't say anymore. I think those are the two guys who are going to take the shots. I was joking about Johnny Davis being the second. That was mostly a troll because people don't like Johnny Davis.
Nope. Get him the ball. Let him cook.
Yeah.
What does it say?
Defensive Player of the Year is basically a participation trophy. That dovetails nicely to my overrated of Rudy Gobert at 64. He's not the 64th best player in the NBA. I'm sorry to break the news to everybody. He's been overrated his whole career.
Is Rudy Gobert even a top 100 player anymore?
Yeah, he's a top 100 guy. Yeah, I think currently he's better than Mitchell Robinson.
Is he?
Yeah.
I like him there, actually. I think there's an argument that that's too low.
I think he's the biggest liability in the game. I don't like what Rudy brings to the table anymore in the modern NBA. It worked for a little bit in Utah because they were playing kind of a stodgy, stingy, suffocate you style of play, and Donovan Mitchell was just the guy on offense. But it doesn't work in Minnesota. It doesn't work in the modern NBA. He is a fucking liability every step of the way defensively anymore. Nobody stays under the hoop and plays defense anymore, and that's what Rudy Gobert needs to be. I don't like Rudy Gobert on an NBA roster in some ways. He's such a liability. I don't know.
I'm hoping that team stays healthy though, just to get a good look at him and Towns together, because they really didn't get a good look at him last year. And I said this at the beginning of last year. Bentley will remember. I was excited to see what that looked like with two bigs out there, and they really, I think they only played like 30 games together or something like that. 20.
Even that many, yeah.
They were hurt. They were hurt at alternate times.
Yeah.
So they were like, "You're hurt now. I'm hurt now. You get some weeks off." So I would like to see, like, if they could get like 60 games of those guys together and know if the experiment failed or not. I think that would just be interesting. But yeah, I do think that the team is not super well built for him, which probably hurts where he should be. But I'm more of a defensive guy than I think a lot of people are.
I like defense.
Value defensively anymore?
Yeah, he can't. He can only block shots and affect shots at the rim. He's not able. He gets lost to pick and rolls. We see it every year in the playoffs in Utah when he got played off the court.
Yeah, he's tough. He's tough in the playoffs, but he's a great regular season player. So
Fine.
Okay,
you got to win then to get to the playoffs.
That is true. All right, so I have one more pressing question about this list, and then we'll go around the blocks here, and we'll unload the clip. If you guys have, we won't delve into it, but we'll just unload the clip on your list of who's over or underrated. If we double up, that's totally fine. And then we have another trivia this week, courtesy of Ryan once again. Dr. Naismith is bringing his knowledge from the past and embarrassing Gary and I with our current NBA knowledge. So my question to y'all about this list, if I could direct your eyes to almost right around the middle, number 47, Victor Wembanyama is above DeAndre Ayton, who's played in an NBA Finals as a starting center. He's also above LaMelo Ball, who I really, really like. I don't know how you guys feel about him personally. But do we think that Victor Wembanyama at the end of next year, when we look back on the season, will be the 47th best player in the NBA. Ryan, what do you think?
I think that's tough. It's so hard. Like he looked really good in preseason, and he's going to have a lot of opportunities. Defensively, I think he'll be really good. I think a lot of people will look at his offensive stats and be like, "Oh, he wasn't amazing," because I think he'll just like have an okay offense. But I think defensively he'll be really good. So I could. Okay, what I'm going to say is he's rated there because of people's projection of his offensive ability. His defensive ability might actually get him to there. He's going to have Evan Mobley level defensive impact, and he's already been an offensive player than Evan Mobley. And Evan Mobley on here is at 40, so like I think he's in that ballpark already. Personally,
that's fair. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I almost can't disagree on principle. I see what you're saying in terms of like where he's at, and he's a rookie, and we haven't seen him play a minute on an NBA basketball floor in a competitive regular season game. But I can't say what I said at the beginning of the show and say that I like how aggressive these NBA writers are in terms of how they feel about rookies, and then come back and say, well, fuck you for rating him at 47, right? I just can't do that. I love the way Ryan put it. I think that everybody's expecting him to like be a 24 and 10 with 6 assists guy. It's not what he's going to be in his rookie year. But defensively, he's going to be potentially an eraser, basically on and off the ball, because he can do what Rudy Gobert can't at that size. He can move. He can stay with the quicker and more agile big guys in the league. But offensively, we may look back at the end of the year and say, was he that? Defensively, he's going to be great. But like I said, I can't say what I said at the beginning of the show and then come back and hate on it. Do I think he's going to be a top 50 player at the end of the season? I do, because I think that he's in the perfect situation where Pop's going to bring him along at the right pace. He's going to teach him how to play the game the right way, and we're going to look at it at the end of the season and say, well, Spurs might be building another dynasty.
Yep. I tend to agree. I think he's going to be one of the 50 best guys in the league after next year, mainly based off of his defense, which kind of answers the question here. Like, we here appreciate what a defensive player can bring to an NBA court, right? The large majority of fans that watch the NBA and follow it maybe a little less closely than others tend to lean towards your Ja Morant's or your Steph Curry is a bad example. Jordan Poole, maybe like the Bradley Beals, the guys that are almost turnstiles. The Trae Young's, perfect example. Trae Young.
Yep. Wonderful
offensive player, extremely talented scorer, underrated passer, but by all means, is he a freaking traffic cone on the defensive end? It's unbelievable. But he's like constantly top 10 jersey sales. It's crazy. So the public viewing audience heavily skews to the offensive end of the court, which I totally understand. But basketball aficionados, tend to value the defensive end a little more than probably the regular Joe.
Yeah, we're not like the other girls.
Yeah. A Dennis Rodman. Yeah.
We almost had it with Draymond Green. He was kind of that bad guy for a little while.
We have Kai Jones.
I was just gonna say. Kai Jones.
Well played.
Nutcase. All right, Gary. Let's go to you, man. Unload the clip, dog. Tell me what you got. Just run it down.
Yeah, you hit Gobert, so that was one of the ones I had left in the clip. I was going to talk about my hatred for him, but I understand other people rating him in the way they do. One guy I think is going to, by the end of the season, I don't hate where he's rated right now on this list. It's my last one that I kind of had in the chamber to save for, a stray here. Anthony Simons was fucking phenomenal last year when Lillard was out. Mm-hmm. I think Scoot's going to take a good portion of that, and whether Jeremy Grant is still that high volume guy. I love Anthony Simons. I love the way he plays. I love his athleticism. I love what he brings to the table. I think he could be at the end of the season a top 75 guy, maybe a little higher than that. But I didn't really bring it up as like an egregious affront because I don't hate where he's rated right now. I understand how he could be rated at 85. But for me, if I was building this list, using the aggressive projection, right? This is what I think is going to happen at the end of the season. I think Anthony Simons has potential to be a top 75 player in this league. And if Scoot plays the way he's projected at 73, you may find a way for Portland to move on from Jeremy Grant at some point this season and still be in really good hands in the backcourt.
Yeah, I also like Anthony Simons. I think he's another one of those guys that's high volume, but not great on the defensive end, to say the least. And he's small, which doesn't really set him apart from anyone individually. But he's extremely gifted on the offensive side of the ball. I will give you that. All right, so we got Gary's list. He emptied the clip for us. Ryan, do you have any more that we can run down real fast?
Yeah, there's a couple guys in the middle that I think are too low. Desmond Bain. We've talked about how much I like Desmond Bain. I think we're all kind of in agreement there. I'm not going to talk about him too much. Watch his game, and you'll get all you need to know. I think Zion's too low. If he plays, he's not the 57th best player. I mean, he's the top 20 guy if he plays, potentially higher. I think Franz is a little low. I expect Franz to be a top 40 guy this year. He's at 52. I also think LaMelo Ball's a little low.
Impressive.
That's impressive. Guys I think are a little high. I think Paolo's just a little high. I know that's going to hurt your feelings, Billy, but I don't like him at 30.
I like where he was.
I don't like Lauri Markkanen at 28. I think I would probably drop those guys like 5 to 10 spots, but like it's not like crazy, right? Like it's reasonable. It's within a tier, I think. And then there's some guys who are just not on the list that, I would have on the list, like Alperen Şengün, for example, who I do actually think will be a top 100 guy this year. That's just me. I think Buddy Hield actually got a lot of hate at 87. I like him more than 87. He's really good. Him and Tyrese make a really good combination in the backcourt with the shooting passing combo there. But yeah, those would be the guys I would say.
Cool. Good. Let's see. Do I have any that y'all have not spoken on? I think Michael Porter Jr. at 68 is a little underrated. Just based off of potential, he has the ability. He could be a top 50 guy in the league if he can stay on the court and continues to develop. We hit on Austin Reeves. I had him at overrated. We hit on Gobert. Had him at overrated. I mentioned Porzingis earlier. I think he's underrated. Desmond Bain, I think, is underrated. Jeremy Grant, obviously, I had overrated. I had Giddey at 53 as underrated, but we kind of spoke on that already. CJ McCollum at 44, I thought was a little bit of an overrating. He's another year older. I like CJ McCollum, don't get me wrong, but he's another year older, and if Zion plays, it's going to take away volume from him. Like
if Zion's the top 25 guy that he can be if he's healthy, McCollum is not number 34.
Right. I had Darius Garland underrated at 36, actually. I really, really love Darius Garland. I love his game. I think he's phenomenal, and he's a better defender than he gets credit for, but they're just so small in that backcourt that it's tough for them. He needs a better defender next to him, sort of the way that Steph and Clay made things work in Golden State, right? Let's see. I think Lauri Markkanen at 28 was an underrated. I think he's a top 25 guy. I expect him, he has combat experience under his belt now. Like, I expect him to take a jump next year that really, translate onto the basketball court, as we all know.
I thought that would hurt him.
Wow. Came out unscathed, baby. Mentally, he might not all be there, but he'll figure it out. Let's see. I had Drew Holiday and Pascal Siakam, both 25-26, as overrated. I'm not a Pascal guy. I think he kind of is still riding off the tails of that championship run they went on, and Kawhi was the best player on that team. But, and Kyle Lowry is probably the second best player on that team. Drew Holiday, I love Drew Holiday. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think he's the 26th best player in the NBA. Probably wouldn't have gotten traded twice in 2 weeks if that were the case, but whatever. Domantas Sabonis, I had it as an underrated. I think he's gonna be phenomenal this year. He was really, really good last year. Probably gonna be a top 20 guy this year, in my opinion.
So I have a question for you on that. So I looked at that 26, I believe he is right now, and then 27 is De'Aaron Fox, right?
22 is Sabonis.
Or 22 and 23. They're
22
right
and 23. Yep.
Is Domantas Sabonis better on that team than De'Aaron Fox?
Okay, are you asking if he's better on that team, or are you asking if he's a better basketball player?
Better on that team.
De'Aaron Fox is probably better on that team.
You think Sabonis is a better pure basketball player? Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, though.
I would have flip-flopped those two. I think they're both. I'm fine with the rating, the area that they're rated, like 20 to 25, right? I got them both probably right in that area. I would have flip-flopped those two because I just De'Aaron Fox brings something to the table that not many players in the NBA do.
Totally agree. He's probably the fastest guy on the court.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just have 3 more, right? Cat, overrated at 20. Not a winning guy. Doesn't do a whole lot for me. And he plays next to Towns. Just kind of clogs the paint. Not my thing. I think Anthony Edwards at 13 is underrated. I expect him to take a leap this year. I think he's going to be absolutely phenomenal. Look out for first team, right? And then my last one, we could not possibly go this entire time talking about the top 100 list if we did not mention the number 1 spot. I'm going to talk about the number 2 spot, but regardless, Nikola Jokic is the best basketball player in the world. You cannot change my mind. I think Giannis probably should be 3. I think Embiid is better than Giannis. I get it. There are things that Giannis does on the court that nobody else in the world can do. Doesn't necessarily make you a better basketball player, in my opinion. But I think Jokic should be 1. We can argue about 2 and 3 till we're freaking blue in the face. Doesn't really matter. It's any semblance of those guys. So long as you put Nikola Jokic at 1, that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Listen, I'll go on any record that they'll put me on to say that Jokic won the MVP last year. He had voter fatigue. I get it, whatever. But he was the best basketball player in the world last year and the last 2 years. He's still the best basketball player in the world. I'm with you 100%. How can you be number 2 and be underrated? Well, because you should be number 1 for sure.
Should be number 1. Yep. All right. So now that we've run through our list, we've given all of our opinions on our ups and downs and overs and unders, and that's coming next week, by the way, folks. The wins and losses total over under is coming. We did one super early. Yeah, for all the degens. We did one like right after the NBA Finals ended and the lines first came out, but they've been adjusted in the offseason, obviously, with like the Dame and some Miami stuff and Philly or whatnot. They've moved, I think, like 3 games. Their line has moved over the offseason. So we're going to go over all those next week. But right now, I'm going to hand over the reins to my boy Ryan. Once again, Dr. Naismith in the house to bring his basketball knowledge and make Gary and I look foolish with some trivia.
I won't be able to live down that one time I wrote my name as that.
Never.
All right, so last week I did pretty easy trivia. I've increased the difficulty a small amount. Okay, not a lot. A small amount. Okay, this is
the small amount.
Yeah, right.
So we just did kind of a who's underrated and who's overrated. So now we're going to, if you'll show my screen here, we're going to do a NBA history before or after. Okay, it's actually basketball history, but I already wrote NBA, so I'm not changing it.
Okay.
So how this is going to work is you're going to read the milestone. We'll start at the first one, and you'll tell me if you think that milestone happened before the year on the far right or after the year on the far right. Okay, does that make sense? And then there's some bonus points available later, but I'll give 1 point. Each person will answer each question. Okay. All right, we'll start. First college game, 1898. Should we take before or after?
I'm going before.
Me too.
Okay, we'll put before. All right, you both scored 1 point. Okay, roughly that happened somewhere between 1894 and 1896. There's different stories, but yeah, it was before 1898. All right, so the modern hoop invented 1899. So if you don't know, they used peach baskets before they invented the hoop.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go after because I believe it changed size somewhere in the early 1900s.
I'll say after as well.
All right, so they were playing college basketball for multiple years with peach baskets.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all are both correct. Nice job. Y'all are so smart. See, I told you this would be easy. All right, we're we're gonna have a bonus point at the end of this one. Olympic basketball, 1932. Is that the first Olympic Games with basketball?
After 1932.
You say after. Bentley says after.
I say after.
I'm gonna go before.
Okay. It's after. 1936 was the first Olympics. All right. Bentley has 3 points. Gary has 2. Bonus point. What city was that Olympics in 1936?
36.
This is a very famous Olympics.
That's Athens, right?
That was going to be my guess, but yeah, I'll
No, it's Berlin. Right before World War II.
Right before World War II.
It's pretty. It's
Jesse Owens one, isn't it?
It's famous for Jesse Owens
Yep.
showing Hitler that
Yeah.
his Ultimate Warriors were not nearly as good as he thought.
The Aryan race.
Yeah.
All right. So the NBA is formed before or after 1945. So that's the end of World War II.
After.
I think it's before.
You think it's before?
I think so. 43? It is
After 1946.
46. Okay.
It's the first year, which is actually not the NBA. It's the BAA, but the NBA counts that as their first year. They co-opted their history. All right, for the bonus point, who won the championship that year?
Jesus Christ.
The Acme Packers.
It's a good guess.
Philadelphia Warriors.
The Philadelphia Warriors did win the championship that year in 1946. Billy gets a bonus point. Nice job talking about the Golden State Philadelphia Warriors.
You're boat racing me here, Bentley.
Wow.
5-2.
I live on the river, dude. I'm used to the water.
Bentley's ahead. All right. The 24-second shot clock introduced. 1957 is the year you have to say before or after.
Before.
After.
It is before. Gary gets a point. It was in 1955, so 2 years before that. All right, same question. Who won the championship in 1955?
Which one?
The NBA championship.
Oh, okay. I would have guessed Trinity College, but
They were Duke at that point.
wow.
55? Was that? Is that one of the Celtics years? I'm going to go Celtics. I might be too early.
Okay. Celtics for Gary.
I might be too early on that. But I'm sticking with it.
Fuck. Give me the Lakers.
It's not them. No, you are both incorrect. It was the Syracuse Nationals, whose owner
Fucking Syracuse hat on. That's embarrassing.
Whose owner?
Yeah, it is embarrassing wearing a Syracuse hat.
He created the 24-second shot clock.
Nice.
Dan Bison. He was like, "Hey, this is a good idea," and then they won the championship the first year it was used.
It was a good idea.
Yes, it was a great idea. All right. So Gary's closing down. Oh wait, no, you got a point that time, didn't you, Bentley? 6.
No, I did not.
Oh, other way. Okay, 5-3 for
3. Okay.
5-3. All right, the first 2,000-point season, 1959, before or after. So there's a guy that comes in after 1959 that we know scored 2,000 points, but did someone do it before him? Is the question.
Ryan, I know you talked about. I'm pretty sure you talked about the guy who scored the first, or something along these lines.
Could be anything.
I know.
I could have been talking about Larry Faust, the guy who scored the last bucket on the lowest scoring game of all time.
Sure. I'm going after.
After 1959.
I'm going to go before. I think it was 58, Ryan, if I remember your story correctly.
You're close. It is before.
I think I even remember who you told us it was.
It was 1957. It was a guy for the Fort Wayne Pistons named George Yardley.
Yardley, right? Yeah. Was it 57?
Was 57. It was
Okay.
good year, 1955.
The first year the shot clock was introduced full time.
Yeah.
Oh, no, 1955 was the first year of the shot clock.
55.
55.
Yeah, it was before
yeah,
57.
yeah.
Before.
Yep. Right. I'm sorry.
All right, so Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game, 1964. I'm going to pause here so we have time. Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game, before or after 1964? Gary is within a point now. It's a close game.
1964.
Another fine year.
Jesus Christ, dude.
These are easy. It's 50-50, okay? I could have made this worse.
I know. I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm going to say before.
I'm going to go before also.
Okay.
64?
Y'all's combined skills got it right. You both get a point. Okay, I'll give you a bonus point if you tell me who he did it against. What team he did it against.
Oh.
It was 1962, if you want to know the year.
Okay.
He was a young man. He looked just like that picture I have on my desk at work. That was 1962.
Look just like that. I have no idea. Anyone but the Celtics.
Buffalo.
No, it was the New York Knicks.
Really?
Yes.
So the Knicks literally have the top 2 scoring performances against them in NBA history.
Yeah, that's kind of their skill set.
That's their fucking thing.
All right, here's something near and dear to my heart: the NBA-ABA merger, 1974. Before or after?
Before.
After.
Ding, ding,
There.
ding. Gary.
Modern stats is 78 and beyond, right?
76.
76.
All right, I'm going to pause it here. It is tied. We have 2 questions left.
Ooh.
There's 3 bonus points available on the NBA-ABA merger, okay?
Uh-oh.
There were 3 teams that did not get included in the NBA-ABA merger.
The Flip
That were-
Tropics.
They were ABA teams.
Globetrotters.
The
So what
Washington Generals.
What I will tell you is 2 of them were not included. The other went bankrupt right before the merger, within like weeks. But I'll count it. If you give me the name of any of those 3 teams, I'll give you 3 if you can get them all.
Not included.
Who was told you're not good enough to play in the NBA?
I'll take team names I don't know for 500.
Okay, that's correct.
I want to say Kansas City. I forget their mascot though. Were they the Monarchs?
I don't know, were they?
Is one fuck. Is one St. Louis? This Can I get St. Louis? Just give me St. Louis.
All right, I'll give you a point for St. Louis. It's the St. Louis Spirits.
Spirit of St. Louis.
Who had Moses Malone on their team. and
Yeah,
they
I
were
knew.
not included.
Yeah,
Also-
I knew St. Louis was one.
Also had Marvin Barnes on that team.
Oh, dude, how could you, Mr. and Mrs. Barnes kid, bro? How could you?
So
forget that?
there's 2 other ones. One team went bankrupt and one was not included. If you give up, you give up. Bentley is ahead by 1 point now.
Good call. Kansas City keeps coming to mind, but I just can't.
Give him a point for Kansas City if it's there, because you gave me St. Louis.
It's not there.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we punting? Or are we saying we don't?
I'm gonna punt on the other two.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna.
All right.
I don't think I'm gonna get it.
The team that was not included that was still running was the Kentucky Colonels,
Oh fuck.
The chicken kept them alive.
who had Dan Issel, Artis Gilmore. They were a pretty good team. They had won the championship that last year, actually, and still were not included. And the team that went bankrupt, a team near and dear to my heart, the Virginia Squires.
Squires. God damn it. You've told us that fucking story too.
Yes, I have. This is
I
really
think
me
Dwyer.
testing how much you listen to me.
I was gonna say, I think Ryan's learning that I don't ever listen when he talks.
All right, 2 more questions. Portland's only NBA championship before or after 1980?
Before.
Yes, before.
Before, correct for
79?
both people. You say 79? It's 77. Is the year
That
they
early.
won.
Okay.
Yeah, very early in one specific player's career. Yep. All right. So here's the bonus points. I'll give you a bonus point of who they beat in the championship, in the finals, and who led the league in points per game that year. I'll give you a point for both.
77
Yeah.
points per game.
Or
They
they
still-
beat.
They were still tallying. They were still tallying Wilt's points from like the 60s.
Yeah, they're still counting that the abacus out. Bentley is ahead by a point right now, so
Yeah.
it's tough. You need one of these, Gary.
I know. I got to get something here. Jesus.
77. Who did they beat?
77.
Fuck it, dude. I'm just gonna say that they beat the Celtics. It's a good guess as any.
That's a West Coast, East Coast kind of thing. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, they have to beat someone from the East, so.
Yes, they have to. That's true. That's how geography works.
Yeah, I'm a big map guy, dude. Everybody knows this.
All right, Gary, you got a guess on who they beat?
I'll
I'll reveal that once you guess, and then we can do points per game.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna go with Milwaukee.
They beat famous East Coast team, the Seattle Supersonics. The league did not make sense at that point.
Oh my god.
That was the Jack Sikma, Dennis Johnson,
Oh my
Seattle
God.
Supersonics. All
They
right.
literally played down the road from each other.
Yeah.
They were in
Yep.
opposite conferences.
And we're in opposite conferences because
Oh my
expansion was rapid at that point, and so they had not like leveled the conferences out yet. It was like, all right, next team gets to be East no matter what. All right, who led the league in points?
Oh god.
77.
Could be anybody.
Larry Bird.
He was not even in the league yet.
Damn it.
Who was still a monster then?
I will give y'all 2 or 3 guesses, and if
I'm
Jack Sikma.
Sigma.
not really a point per game guy.
Bill Walton comes
It's a Hall of Famer
Never
though.
led the league in scoring. Late 70s. Iceman?
George Gervin did lead the
Nice.
league in scoring that year
Nice.
with about 28 and a half points.
Nice.
Jesus.
All right.
Nice.
It's tied 8-8.
Last question. Ooh.
All right. First European born player. There were people who of European descent that
Yeah.
obviously played in the NBA. First European born player in the NBA before or after 1981. Are we gonna game theory this and y'all just pick opposites and then someone has to win?
Rock, paper, scissors for
Yeah.
81, huh?
1981. That's pretty late. It's pretty
European
late.
born
It's super
player.
late. But basketball was a purely American sport for
Yeah.
so long.
True. That's true. It's a good point.
European born player. Fuck it. I'll say after.
Oh, you took it from me. I actually was thinking after, but I'm going to go before just the game theory. One of us is going to win.
It's crazy because I really wanted to say before.
After
82?
1985 is the first.
Who was it?
George. His name's really hard to pronounce, but it's Georgy Glachkov.
Glachkov? Okay.
He was a Bulgarian-born player. No one's ever heard of him, but
Oh, it's Mr. and Mrs. Blotchkov's kid. Obviously.
Of the famous dancing Glachkov.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, George goes way back.
It's
He
a
was
bit-
smoking weed out back, you know?
Finley wins 9-8.
Well, Congratulations, Bentley. Well
Mm.
played. Well done.
That's 2 in a row, dude. I'm on a streak.
You are. You are.
Next time I'll make it easier for you, Gary.
All right.
I thought that was pretty easy.
That was good.
Yeah, for you it was easy. You had all the answers.
I wrote the questions.
If I wrote the questions, it'd be easy for me too. But like I said at the beginning, I just like to talk a lot. So
Hey,
these are the guys that really know ball.
You won.
I did magically.
Take your win.
I will, and I thank you for putting that together every week so far, Ryan. Really do appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. I know Gary's dad appreciates it. He said good game tonight. It's a great game tonight, actually.
I came down to the last question.
Yeah,
Gary's dad. If you have time, leave in the chat how many you got right.
True. Play along with us. Let us know.
Yeah,
Let us know.
Yeah.
He was like, I remember the 77th season. Iceman was a stud that year.
Apparently he was. Who knew?
Yeah.
That being said, we have come to the conclusion of this evening's show. As is tradition for Thursday nights, I would like to get a prediction for the boys for the football game, even though it already has kicked off. It is still 0-0. Closing line was 10.5 to Kansas City. Ryan, what's your pick here?
Yeah, I'll take the line there. I feel pretty comfortable that Kansas City wins by 11 or more.
Lay the points. All right. Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the smart money is laying the points with Kansas City. Denver's been so bad all year. Javonte Williams is back, but they haven't gotten him going. I'm going to caveat my pick. Like, that's my pick, but, like, these games are weird sometimes, these rivalry games in division. This could be one of those. Thursday night, it's always weird on Thursday nights, too. But the smart money is to lay the points because Denver's so bad. And they're clearly tanking. They traded away Randy Gregory, and they're about to trade away Frank Clark to anybody that'll take him for a fucking 7th-round pick. They're not invested in Russell Wilson. They're not invested in much that's left on this roster. I think they want to try to maneuver to get Caleb Williams. I don't know if they're going to lose enough games at this point. We'll see. Carolina's probably going to end up with the top pick and trade it away to someone else. But smart money is to lay the 10.5, honestly.
Chicago has their pick.
Chicago has – they have Denver's. That's right. They do.
They got everybody's pick.
Chicago has Carolina's pick.
Or Carolina's.
Carolina's,
yeah. Right. So Chicago's probably going to get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. That's right. Yep. I forgot. I for some reason I thought Chicago had Arizona's pick, but it's Carolina's that they have.
Houston has Arizona's pick. No, Arizona has Houston's pick.
Yeah,
right.
I knew Arizona was kind of in the mix too, but you're right. So Chicago will get it, and Caleb Williams probably is going to be a Bear, and I don't know. I mean, Justin Fields is good the last couple of weeks, but this isn't an NFL show.
Nope.
Nice game. Smart money though. I'm with Ryan. I'm going to lay the points. What about you? What are you doing?
Well, if smart money is laying the points, then call me dumb because I will buy the points. Give me 10.5. That's a lot of points for a Thursday night game.
Thursday night, yeah.
Kelsey's banged up. He's playing on a bum ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the points. Give me the 10.5. That being said, boys, thank you so much for being here this evening. Everyone in the chat, we appreciate you hanging out and dealing with our nonsense and listening to us talk about who we think are the 100 best players in the NBA next year. For all the gentlemen here, this has been Backyard Buckets presented by Backyard Sports. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, guys.